Hi guys and welcome. I'm still stuck at home in a lockdown, so I set myself a new challenge in my backyard. Over the last few days I noticed these really cool but also very skittish eastern rosellas coming to my setup here. So for today, or over the next few days, I want to try to get a tight head portrait of one of these stunning parrots. Why a tight head portrait? Because in one of my last videos I said that I found the R5 to work a little bit more slowly than my 5D Mark IV with the extenders. So I thought, why not take the R5, my 600mm lens, and both of my extenders and shoot with them exclusively for a few days to see if I actually find that it's slower when using it in the field, or whether when you use it in the field you don't notice any different and still get really good results. So that's what I want to do for the next few days. I've also received my battery grip, so I share my experience with that. And I've also noticed that in certain situations it seems like that the electronic shutter gives me better results than the mechanical shutter. So I want to show you some examples and share some experiences with you with that. In my last video I used an artificial background to get some shots of the lorikeets on these Banksia flowers, but for today I want to mix things up again and just use what's there in my yard. No artificial background, just a bit of greenery that you can see behind me there. But when I use the greenery without anything else, it looks really dark and kind of unpleasant to my eye. So I thought of a few different things of what I can do, and I came across these work lights that I saw in my garage. So I grabbed them, plugged them in, pointed them at the green background, and they actually worked really well in brightening up that background to a really pleasant level. So I'm going to use these lights pointing at the background, and another reason why I'm not using the background sheet is that I think that the rosellas are too scared of seeing that sheet behind me, and they will just not come in if they see that big sheet and it's moving in the wind. So I'm trying to keep it as low key as possible. Alright, now we're all set up. I put out the lights, turned them on, so slightly brightening my background. So I set up a few perches. Now I'm just waiting for the birds to come in. I'm using my 600mm lens, 2x extender and the R5. Shutter speed will be f9, 400th of a second, ISO 3200. It's still fairly dark at the moment, so that's the shutter speed I'm going with. Ideally, I like to shoot at f11 with the 2x extender, but in these sort of low light conditions, I think I need to go to f9 simply so I have a bit more shutter speed, because I don't really like shooting below a 400th of a second when it comes to bird photography, especially with a long lens like this and a 2x extender, so I have a lot of focal length. That's where I really need at least a little bit of shutter speed to get sharp images, and also the birds move around a lot, so if your shutter speed is too slow you will likely end up with blurry images simply because the bird's moving. I'm also not using a flash today because I want to keep it all natural background, just lit a little bit with a lamp and then no flash. But when I'm not using flash, what's very important is that I make sure that my exposure is nice and bright to the right, so that I don't have to recover any kind of too dark areas. Oh, I'm actually just seeing there's a few lorikeets coming in now. Just on my branch. That wasn't too bad. Got the lorikeet just on the way down to the bowl, landing on my branch, giving me a nice headshot. The sun is out now, so it can't really shoot anymore, and hasn't been the best day. I got a few headshots of the lorikeets, but no rosella shots at all. But that's nature photography, isn't it? Sometimes we just can't get the shots that we envision, and we have to persist and try again, and that's exactly what I'm going to do over the next few days. And fingers crossed that we actually get the shot that I really want. Day 2. Yesterday wasn't very successful, so I'm up bright and early again. Very hopeful to get a rosella shot today. But you can see that even in an environment that's kind of controlled, where you have birds coming to a bowl with some food, you still don't know what you get. And to get those perfect images, you still have to have everything coming together. The bird coming in and making a great pose on the right perch with the right light, and you have to be ready and get the shots that you want. So it's still a challenge, even if you think that in an environment like this, where I stand in my own garage, have the birds coming in, it's easy. It's not really easy. So I'm really hopeful that today we're finally going to get that rosella shot, but you never know. There's the rosella. didn't get it, came down from the tree, straight onto the ground again. And the problem with the Rosella is it only goes onto my perch when it comes in. Then it hops onto the bowl, feeds a little bit on the apple and takes off, and it takes 2, 3, 4 hours before it comes back. So there's only one chance of it landing on the right spot with the right pose for me to get the shot. Otherwise I'm just standing here not getting anything like I'm getting at the moment. And off it goes. Day 2 is in the books. I got a few more lorikeet shots. I saw the Rosella twice, but both times it didn't land on my perch, went straight onto the ground without giving me any shots. Very frustrating, but that's nature photography. Day 3, and for today I decided I will take off the 2x extender and put on the 1.4 extender instead and move my whole setup closer. Why am I doing this? Simply because the 2x extender gave me too many blurry images or images with motion blur. We're shooting at f9, 400th of a second, which is just sufficient, but there seemed to be a little bit too much camera shake and a little bit too much movement in the birds when they quickly move their head from the left to the right. So I ended up with a lot of images that were not fully sharp, and with the low light and the 2x extender I thought maybe I'd be better off if I use the 1.4 extender and move everything a little bit closer, so I'm still getting the bird nice and big in the frame, but I will be able to use the same shutter speed, 400th of a second, with the 840mm now, and I should get less camera shake and less motion blur in my images, hopefully. There's been a lot of lorikeet today. I'm getting some nice shots. I'm a little bit more happy with the results with the 1.4 extender, simply because I can use the same shutter speed, but because I have less focal length, I get a little bit less camera shake in some of the images, so that's been good. Other than that, I've also been trialing around with the electronic shutter and the mechanical shutter, because a few people mentioned to me that they seem to be getting more consistently sharp images with the electronic shutter. And I've been experiencing something similar. I'm going to share more experiences at the end of this video, but just for now I'm just playing around with both of these, taking shots of the lorikeets when they sit there, few with the electronic shutter and then the same bird in the same situation with the mechanical shutter. I'm just comparing to find out what's best. There's another lorikeet. I've been getting a lot of lorikeet shots today, but still no Rosella, and the sun is coming out again. So frustrating. So it looks like I might have to spend another few days here trying to get that shot. Day, I don't even know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I stopped counting. I still haven't gotten a Rosella shot. It's getting really frustrating. I'm just standing here, but I'm in a lockdown. What else am I gonna do? So at least it keeps me entertained, but I have a good feeling about today. So fingers crossed we're gonna get some shots. I'm still happy using the 600mm 1.4 extender and the R5, so I get a nice and tight shot of the bird. I can see another Rosella coming on my perch. Oh, and it's just not quite looking at the camera. How frustrating. I got a nice male landing on my branch, but it's made a funny pose and just looked away from me, didn't get the shot. How frustrating. Finally landed on my perch and I don't get the shot because it's not looking at me. Oh. Just had the Rosella female come in and sit on the perch. Because she doesn't have the nice and vibrant colors of the male, I quickly took my extender off so I can get the whole bird in the frame, get some shots. At least it's a good start that I've been getting some Rosellas on my perches today, and of course the lorikeets that are always here. It happened a few times now that the Rosella comes in, and the moment it lands, a lorikeet comes in and chases it away. So I'm happy I got some shots today, but there's still room for improvement and I still want that really nice headshot. There it is. On my perch. Finally, all these days of waiting, there it is, the shot that I really wanted, the stunning male Rosella on the upright top perch, giving me a beautiful pose, showing all the amazing colors. I'm really stoked. It's been such a long wait. I'm really happy with this shot. That was a shot that I had in mind for a couple of weeks now, and I think what we're going to do in the next video, I'm going to grab this shot and I'm going to edit it from start to finish, and I take you with me through the editing process, show you how I deal with the R5 files and how you can get the most out of your bird images. And if you want an even more in-depth look into how to edit your bird images, check out my masterclass on image editing down in the description. I know it will help you to a great deal. Now that took a lot longer than I expected to get the headshot of that eastern Rosella. I think it's good that you also see that not everything works straight away when it comes to bird photography. Even if it's in a kind of controlled environment, things might still not really work out in your favor and you have to spend a lot of time to get the shot. What have I learned over the last few weeks using the R5 with the extenders? First of all, it works perfectly fine with the extenders. That perceived lack of speed that I had in the test with the 5D Mark IV really didn't show in the field and performed really well, especially in low light and with high ISO. I started out using the 2x extender, but after a couple days of using it, I swapped over to the 1.4 extender and moved my camera closer to the birds, simply because with the 2x extenders my shutter speeds were just too slow to get consistently sharp images, and I had a lot of kind of slightly blurry images or images where the birds were moving, introducing motion blur into my images. So I swapped over to the 1.4 extender to be less likely to have that much blur or out of focus images. Why did I start out with the 2x extender in the first place? Well, that's simple, because when you use the 2x extender, it blurs the background a little bit more than using the 1.4 extender. Because that dark green background that I'm using is kind of busy, I thought using the 2x extender will give me the smoothest kind of look. And it did, but it didn't really work because I got too many blurry images. So I used the 1.4 extender. So all in all, the extenders have performed very well, and I can tell you all that it's definitely not a problem using the extenders on the R5 with my 600mm version 2 lens. And if you're having a 600mm version 3 lens, it will work even better. And lately Canon has come out as well saying there will be a lot of new RF 500, 600, 800 and even 1200mm prime lenses, and I'm sure these will work really well with the extenders as well, and with even better and faster AF that I get now. One thing a few people had mentioned to me, and that I noticed as well in my tests here over the last couple of weeks, is that in certain situations the electronic shutter will give you more consistent sharp images than the mechanical shutter. In these cases here, where the birds just sit on a perch and I'm firing away, if I'm using the electronic shutter, basically every single image will be in focus or almost in focus. There's no real images where it jumps off the bird and then back onto the bird. Whereas when I'm using the mechanical shutter, there are situations where I get 1, 2, 3 sharp images and then it jumps off noticeably and then jumps back onto the bird, jumps off the bird, jumps back onto the bird. So I'd say out of maybe 30 shots I'll get like 25 pretty good ones with the electronic shutter and maybe around 20 good ones with the mechanical shutter. The shots are not terrible, but you can really see in the 100% when you zoom in that there's certain shots where it's just not as sharp and then sharp again and jumps off again. So all in all, it seems like with the electronic shutter, the AF is able to stay on the bird more consistently. With the mechanical shutter, for some reason, it seems a little bit more jumpy coming off the bird and jumping back onto the bird. I'm definitely happy to use either mode, and there are Pros and cons for each mode. The main difference is that the electronic shutter only has a 12-bit RAW file, whereas the mechanical shutter offers you a 14-bit RAW file. So that means it's easier to recover dark shadows or highlights in the 14-bit mechanical shutter. Although, if you shoot in high plus mode, you're also only getting 13 bits. So to get the 14-bit RAW file, you have to be in one of the lower speed modes, and then you get the full advantage of the 14-bit RAW file. Personally, when I've been shooting with the electronic shutter mode or the slower mechanical shutter mode, I haven't really noticed any noticeable difference in the RAW files, but when you edit and there's some extreme scenarios where you have to lift some shadows or recover some highlights, you might find that it's a little bit easier on a 14-bit RAW file than on a 12-bit RAW file, but we can also look at that in my next video. So all in all, I must say, if I want to be 100% certain that I get sharp images, I might be tempted to go for the electronic shutter, but most of the time I will still be using the mechanical shutter because it gives me enough sharp images and I get a little bit better, more bit depth RAW files. The other thing with the electronic shutter is that it's completely silent. And while I really enjoyed that and it was good for that skittish bird because it didn't hear any sound, I also find it a bit irritating at times because you simply take so many pictures because you don't even notice that you're taking pictures. So it's a good feature, but it's a feature that I just have to get used to because at the moment I do prefer to hear a little bit of a shutter sound. And even the mechanical shutter, the sound is so quiet that the birds still don't really notice. About 1 week into this backyard shoot, I also finally managed to get my battery grip, and now I can have 2 batteries inside the camera, and I can also finally do proper vertical shots because I have that vertical grip where I have all the buttons on the vertical side of things as well, so I don't have to reach around that tiny camera, which was almost impossible for me. So I'm much happier with the battery grip. It feels really nice, and it definitely improved battery life as well. And with the one battery life was always a little bit iffy, but now I'm pretty confident that I can use those 2 batteries and that they will last me a reasonable amount of time, and I don't really have to worry about the battery life at all. So that has been a dramatic improvement. The camera sits much better in my hand. I can rest my hand on the camera. I can shoot proper verticals, so I'm very, very happy with it. I would recommend having a battery grip to anyone who's considering an R5. I hope you really enjoyed this video. Because I'm still stuck in this lockdown, there's nowhere else to go for me than my garage and my backyard, but I'm trying to make the most out of it, showing you different ways how you can take really cool bird images in a really small space like this by just using your creativity and going for different things. Like first I went for the lorikeets with an artificial background on some flowers, and now we've gone for tight head portrait of this stunning looking rosella. So there's many different things that you can do just in your own little tiny backyard, even if you think that's impossible. And for my next video that will be coming out in the next few days, we're going to grab that favorite rosella image that I got and edit it from start to finish. I'll show you my editing process and how I deal with the R5 RAW files, because that's still pretty tricky at the moment. If you want to learn all about bird photography and how to track birds or how to make your images absolutely amazing in the editing process, check out my ebooks and videos down there in the description. I really appreciate the support, and I know that that will help you a lot. So give me a thumbs up for this video. Make sure you subscribe to my channel down there and turn on the notifications so you don't miss any videos, and I will see you in one of my next videos. Bye!